All right, y'all. Welcome to another edition of Science Vision Art and Life. My name is Adewale Booker Jr. Please review us, rate us, give us a 5-star. Don't be a hater. Today, I'm going to talk about three things: art, animation, and comics. I'm going to stay specifically within the animation world, because there's art in it, there's animation in it, and there's also comics too. We're going to look at a few comics today. Like one of them is going to be Cards of Assassins, my creation, Age of Apocalypse, X-Men, Captain America, X-Men, just to name a few. But, being an artist and being in the animation world, one of the things that I do, as I like to focus on, is like the concept of the art that I need for what I need to do. For me, being that I'm in the animation world, I think detail is very important. My style, of course, I feel like my style of drawing is more Japanese style. There's American style concepts too, but I prefer the Japanese style. I feel like it's more detailed. It's more centered on like the little things that make a drawing pop out. For every artist is different. I know for me, a lot of influence for me growing up was Japanese animes, cartoons like Ronin Warriors, Thundercats, Defenders of the Earth, Techno Man, Gundam Wing, even Dragon Ball Z to a certain extent. Of course, American animations were like X-Men, of course. That was the most popular one in the 90s. Even in the 2000s too, you had X-Men Evolution, Iron Man, Avengers Assemble, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, even the Blade series that was for one season, So the concept of where you draw is important, right? So for me, I like to draw things where like you can see the detail, even on the hoodie you're seeing right now, because it's cold. So I decided I'm gonna wear a hoodie and my beanie, and you can find this on sciencevisionsshop.com. But you can see the artwork on this, like it's very detailed, very constant. This is the first version of the characters. So, for me, like drawing everything is really important for me to have a detailed concept of it. Like the art part is, without the art part, you really can't go into the other two parts, because the art part is the part where you create the idea. You give birth to the idea. What do you want it to look like? How do you want it to look like? What's the color scheme? Density of the characters. And what I mean by density is like muscle tone. Are they lean? Are they skinny? Are they bigger in weight? Are they heavier? Are they, because the way you draw women and the way you draw guys is totally different. Of course, when you draw women, you have to draw them kicking butt too, because I like to draw powerful women, but at the same time too, keeping feminine characteristics while looking strong, intelligent, beautiful, and all that good stuff. And then with the guys, it's easy to default to just drawing muscles and stuff like that, which is easy, but I prefer more concepts like, okay, is this person tall? Are they lean? Are they muscular? Are you drawing an intelligent character? And if you are drawing an intelligent character, you have to put concepts and details on that character to make that person intelligent. Are you drawing a more it just depends on the character that you're drawing. And so the art part is really difficult. Like I said, now we're going back to comics again. Even if you look at the cover, right, you can see the detail of it, right? This is the version 5 versus version 1 you can see on my hoodie, right? So you have to really pay attention to stuff like that, right? Even on this Captain American comic, this old concept, it's got Cable and Captain America on there. This is probably in the 90s. You can see the detail of it, right? You can see how even on Cable's eye, you can see the energy glow of it. I mean, things like that, I think, is what's missing in cartoons today. And I look at a lot of comics, they don't have that anymore. And I guess, I don't know whether that's to do with budgets or what it's to do with. I mean, even looking at this X-Men, this is old school, y'all. Age of Apocalypse, the Chosen and the Forgotten. This is where Apocalypse was choosing who he was going to take in the Age of Apocalypse. I mean, you can see the detail on Apocalypse, how much work and time was put into drawing this. So, looking at this old school X-Men comic, it's got Storm, Colossus, and Wolverine on the cover here. You can see the detail of it. So that's what I mean by the concept of the art and like density and stuff like that. Because without the art looking right, the animation ain't gonna look right. I mean, even looking at this old X-Men with Gambit and Sabretooth over here, these are some of the stuff that, and I don't even have as many comics as I used to. I don't even know what happened to them. But, this is what I mean by the art. The art is very important. So the concept of the art and what you do as an artist is important. So, which leads to animation. Now, the animation part is really hard. As everybody knows, it takes 24 frames to make 1 second. But when you're creating animation, depending on your style of drawing, and it comes back to the basis again, is it Japanese style? Is it American style? A lot of the animation that's done now is mostly done in, whether it's Korea or whether it's Japan, but it's not really done in America. You can tell American animation from Japanese, Korean animation. You can see the detail of it. Japanese animation is very detailed. It tends to keep, going back to comics again, it tends to keep the details of the work. Japanese animation, that's really the biggest between Japanese animation and American animation. Even looking at the comics, it tends to keep comics, looking at, if you see the detail on this, it tends to keep, Japanese anime keeps the detail of everything. So everything you're seeing in this comic, you would see it on the Japanese anime. With animation, like, for me, I like detail. Everything I got on this hoodie right now, as you can see, these are the characters I want to see in the animation. From the gears in the arm, if it's a robot, to the, if it's a human being, to the detailed muscles on the arms. You want to see the veins, you want to see the shadows of the arm. American animation doesn't really do that. I feel like we have a tendency to just skip. Let's just put the drawing on the screen, and as long as the part's a movie, then it's good. Well, that's cool, but I feel like we're cutting shortcuts there. For me, I like detail. Animation, depending on who you go with, I prefer Japanese no matter how this goes. Japanese anime, I feel like, is the best, is second to none. That's the style that I draw, and as the future is going, as everything's going right now, when I eventually get to that point, Japanese animation is what I'm going to go for. I'm not interested in like little detail. You can do Japanese, like a lot of the new DC animated movies that they're doing, they do a great job of that. I love how they have the detail. You can see the detail in the animation, detail in the characters, detail in the suits, detail in the arms, detail in even in the hair, in the robots. That's what I mean. Yeah, depends on the kind of animation. Like, you have different types of animation. You have the basic ones like Avengers Earth Mightiest Heroes is, to me, basic compared to Earth Avengers Assemble, because Avengers Assemble was way more detailed. You can tell, like, it's got a lot of detail in the characters. You can see, especially from season 1, 2, 3. Season 4 through 5 for Avengers Assemble is completely different. I feel like the animation style changed, but 1 through 3 was very detailed. You could see the muscle density, you could see the lines, you could see even the smallest things in things like Tony Stark's armor. You could see stuff like that. So that's where the different types of concept of animation come in. I feel like Japanese animation is probably the best animation for me. I know that's where I'm going in the future. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's a very detailed oriented concept. They don't like to skip anything. Like, if anybody has ever watched Gundam Wing, that's probably the perfect example of what I'm talking about. Or Techno Man. I mean, Gundam Wing was so sick. I'm talking about Gundam Wing Mobile Suit. I think it was 1995 series. You've got you can see the gears in like the Gundams. I mean, it's just ridiculous. You can see like the buttons on the screen. They even inside the robot, you can see the buttons. I mean, that's the kind of detail that I'm talking about. And that, to me, what makes a great animation. So, which leads to comics. Now, usually you're supposed to have art, comics, and animation, but I kind of did the reverse. I went art, animation, and comics, because comics, like I said, growing up. So this is the first bio book of the Cardiac Assassin universe. You can get this on sciencefictionshop.com or sciencefiction.com. But when I created it, my goal was basically to have like a character profile of my character. So I'll show y'all a little snippet, maybe the first page. You know what I'm saying? You can see these are the good guys right here, the Carjacks. As you can see right here, I've got, Cajun, part of the Carjacks team. He's got height, weight, where they're from, all that good stuff in the bio. Like I said, you can get this on sciencefictionshop.com. When you create a comic, I don't know, everybody has their rules, but my rule is this: make it the best that it can be, as much detail as possible, and the best story possible. I think what's wrong with a lot of comics today is the storylines are kind of weak. I'm going to refer back to like some of these old comics. Like, look at this X-Men comic. God, I've read this comic. You can see I've beat this thing up quite a bit. I've read it a bit, but the story of this one is like the Morlocks come to the X-Men mansion and demand that Storm, who's the leader of the Morlocks, come and lead her people. And so she's forced to go into a battle against Calypso, and they fight in the Morlock tunnels. But you can see the detail, the way they tell the stories, right? I mean, the old school comics, God, I love the old school comics. I used to love comics, but once I started watching animation, I fell in love with that over comics, So, but you can see the detail of the work. I mean, the storylines and stuff. Like, let's look at this old X-Men Age of Apocalypse comic. Like I said, it was the Chosen and the Forgotten. I mean, you can tell, even though the whole story is about telling who was chosen and who's forgotten, you can see the detailed work. They're still able to create backgrounds and stuff like that. And that's what's wrong with like comics nowadays. Like, they're not as detailed as y'all can see. Look at this, man. I mean, these pages are sick. You got the Storm scene right here. You can tell she's just calling on the Arctic winds and all kinds of stuff like that. I mean, it's just, you don't see that anymore, man. It's just not like it used to be, y'all. It's just, you got Quicksilver here running fast as I don't know what. You got Beast. You got the Four Horsemen. You got Weapon X, you know, my second favorite Wolverine, of course, but aka in that world, Age of Apocalypse becomes Weapon X. You've got Gambit and Externals. You got Colossus right there. I mean, you've got all kinds of characters. You got, sorry, y'all, see, it's getting old. You've got Bishop right here. So, you know, the details of what I'm talking about. I mean, even looking at this Captain America comic, I mean, look at this. Some of the problems is the detail, man. And so comics, the way you make them, the storyline, the detail, a lot of artists have a tendency to want to just shortcut things. If you want us to read something, then give us as much detail as possible, because I think the detail of the art in itself creates a story. So, you know, I don't see a situation like, even on my comic book as I'm working on right now, you know, those are just samples, y'all. And as I'm working on Cards Out for Assassins right now, the main thing I'm focused on in the storyline is detail, not skipping anything, telling a story with every page is a story. So you have to create a situation where it's just like you're telling a story, you know, even though this is just a bio book, but it's still a story in itself, as you can read about every character, right? So, you know, you have to like give us what we want. Like I'm working on, like I said, I'm working on the first Cards of Assassins bio book. And my goal with this book is to tell you a story of how these characters came together, what they can do, what their battles are. And as you start to read the book, you start to realize, man, what else about these characters do I not know and do I want to know? So a job of an artist is to create a concept where we, the readers, understand what you're creating. So that's the comic side of all this stuff, art, animation, and comics. I think for me, comic books now, like, I don't read as much as I used to, but when I used to, what I loved about the comics, like I showed you in some of the old X-Men comics, they were very detailed, as y'all can see. They were very detailed. They just showed you a lot of work. And that's what influenced me to create my own, when I was creating my own characters, my own book, to really focus on detail. So, you know, so y'all check that out. I mean, see what I mean? Detail, man. Detail of everything. So that's where I'm going with this. So y'all, that concludes our show today. I want to thank y'all for listening. This podcast is produced, written, and directed by yours truly, Adewale Boke Jr. Please check out our website at sciencefictionshop.com or sciencefiction.com. Please check out our podcast wherever you listen, whether it's Amazon, Desert, Spotify, Apple. You can also listen to our website at sciencefictionshop.com or sciencefiction.com. Please check out our social media platforms at Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all at ScienceFiction. And please don't forget to review us, rate us, give us a 5-star, don't be a hater. And as always, continue to aspire and achieve. Have a great week, y'all. Stay safe. Peace.